This is your Monday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand, Patrick Reusse here with me as usual on Mondays. Got a lot to get to, Patrick. We'll start with the Twins in a minute here, but we'll also get to British Open. That's quite a finish there. Everybody's just waiting to, give Rory his celebration, and then Cameron Smith had other ideas, and I guess Rory did too because he did not play great on Sunday. He played okay, but not great based on what had been going on all week. Cheryl Reeve upset about disrespect from the league. Get to a little bit of Aurora and Loons. Both those teams won over the weekend, more meaningful in the big picture of their season for Aurora. And we got to get a little bit of Cooperstown induction is next weekend, and I understand you are going, Patrick. So let's get ahead of that a little bit before we talk about it next week. But yeah, Twins, Patrick. My gosh, I was worried about this series for, I don't know, just didn't seem like they'd been playing all that great lately. Just kind of felt like they were out of gas a little bit from all the games they'd been playing, all the work they had asked their bullpen to do. Seemed like a team that needed 4 days off, but I was, for their sake, I was hoping that they could, find a little bit of reserve, just knowing they had some break here, but they sure just looked like a team that was overmatched against the White Sox. 2 blowout losses, including, what was it yesterday? 11-0. Jeez.
16 hits to 1 yesterday.
That's not good. That's, as they say, that's not good.
No, it's I have the rather odd view of this, that if I was the Twins, I would not spend a lot of resources pumping up this team. They don't have enough pitching. One pitcher isn't going to change it, and this is not the White Sox are probably going to end up finishing 8 games ahead of them. B, this is not a team to think that, oh man, if we only had one person, we can make it to the American League Championship Series or something like this. This team's got no chance. If they might win a playoff game miraculously, but they would have no chance against it. I know it's baseball. Anything can happen, blah, blah, blah. This team against the Yankees or an Astros, they'd all be 10-0 with 16 hits to 1. This is not a team worth investing a lot of a lot of your ammunition in, I don't think. And, the interesting thing is somebody calls up and makes a nice offer for Correa at the All-Star game, at the deadline. What would you do? That guy's really a good player, man. And, if you had any chance to keep him, fine. But this isn't a good team. The lineup's okay. The lineup's okay, but I've been saying all along, you can't come close to the finish line with this pitching. And now that Sonny Gray has turned bad, now he might bounce back. But, we want to crown some of these young pitchers. Dylan Bundy is now their second best starter. That's all you got to know about this team. So, they're not worth spending much of your young talent on. If you want to trade one of your extra lefties, if you want to trade Kepler and get something for it, fine. But and then you got some other left-handed hitting outfielders. But I just don't see. Oh, they got to go out and get a big pitch. Not for this collection. Not for this team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think all along maybe they would have been looking at that. It's kind of been a weird year from the start, because it's been like a year of mixed messages from the start, because they obviously made some significant upgrades in the offseason when you're talking about adding Carlos Correa, when you're talking about trading your 2021 first round pick, Chase Petty, to get Sonny Gray. You're admitting that you aren't just punting on the season, but the weird Taylor Rogers trade at, right before the season started, and just kind of the, how they finished last year, the way they kind of seem like they've been, getting these starting pitchers ready, but hopefully for 2023 2023, not 2022. It was a year where it kind of seemed like they weren't sure what exactly they had or were. And I think it's probably fair to say that they have overachieved. They've certainly played above expectations to this point. I think they've played above their talent to a certain degree. But the problem too, though, Patrick, is that every time I'm ready to just say, yeah, here we go. This is the inevitable slide, like after it happened when they lost those million close games, bullpen games to Cleveland 3 weeks ago. They turn things around again and rebuild that lead to 5 games. Now, right now, it's just 2 over Cleveland and 3 over the White Sox at the break. And that's a problem because there's 2 teams now that they have to fend off if they are going to fend them off. And, there's the 3 wild cards now give you a little bit of incentive to think you can hang around and maybe, even if you lose the division lead, if you end up being competitive, you could still get a wild card. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think the most I would do probably is, get some bullpen help, because that at least gives you a shot to get to the finish line and be competitive. I think you run into a public relations problem more than anything now if you don't do anything. Is kind of how I would look at it.
Public relations problems. Who cares? That's if they get a relief pitcher, people will say they got the wrong relief pitcher, and the hardcore baseball fans are down on them, and which is only a very small percentage of the population. And the people who just go to a ball game because they go to 2 a year, they don't care. They're not going to go out and buy a bunch of tickets just because you would go and get a pitcher or not. It's the crowd at the ball game is far different than the crowd on Twitter and the Star Tribune commenters and people like that. I've always said that the secret of having a halfway decent year at the gate is to be good early. And if you fall on your face by August, some people have bought some tickets. August has always been traditionally when they draw fairly well. And then September is, if you're good, you draw an extra 5,000 a game. But I don't, public relations to me is, I mean, it was great public relations to sign Correa, when they threw him in his lap and like that. But people didn't come to the ballpark till June. So I don't know. It's just, I just look at them and say, this isn't a good team. This isn't a great team. I mean, name Joe Ryan, we want to crown him into something that, he's a young pitcher who's about number 4 starter most places. So he's nothing great. And he's okay. You can throw him at the back end of a good rotation. Chris Archer, he'll give you a good 3 1/3 or 4 innings or so. I mean, and then the bullpen. How long did we think Joe Smith was going to fool people? For God's sakes.
I blame.
He's 112 years old and he's been with 25 teams, and all of a sudden, we got Joe Smith. I mean, what's wrong with
I blame myself for the Joe Smith thing. I took notice of him finally when he was on his big start of the year scoreless streak, and told C-Mill that I was going to write about him. Chris Miller, our baseball editor. I told him I'm going to mention him on the podcast and do this thing on him for the next day. And as I think it was that night that he gave up his first run. And so I kind of had to tweak a blog post I'd written for print, say, he finally gave up a run, and, kind of reframed it a little bit. So ever since that scoreless start, he's given up 16 runs in 14 innings or something like that, including 5 of them yesterday.
With 3 home runs yesterday, right?
That was impressive. That was something else.
But I mean, the White Sox have played like mutts all year, right? I mean,
they're still 3 out
for 50, 60 games. They made 3 errors a game, and the pitching was shaky as can be. But yesterday they send out Dylan Cease and you send out Chris Archer. You got 5% chance to win that game. The only way you're going to win the game is if Dylan Cease gets hit in his ankle with a line drive and has to leave or something. You got 0 chance to win that game. That's why I said after Saturday's game, that was a very big win because it keeps them from getting swept.
Yeah.
And I don't know. They're just, I have not been excited about this club all year just because I'm a believer in Tom Kelly baseball, right?
Yeah.
And Tom Kelly tells you it's all about the pitching.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about the pitching. And even though the lineup is okay, and Buxton is going to start the All-Star game with his 210 average. Boy, am I proud. Now that Trout's not going to play, and the lineup's okay, but you can't win with this pitching staff. It's ridiculous to think that something was going to be accomplished this year. The only reason, by the way, Mike, when they blew the lead and then they regained it, they only won half their games.
I know.
They regained it, and Cleveland lost them all.
I know.
The White Sox played their last terrible stretch of baseball. So I don't know. It's not, it's just never. I've never gotten into this team. And then the whole thing last week, when they couldn't get a clutch hit to save their lives, they were, loading up the bases. And what was it? I think Bremer or Corey or somebody was making a big deal out of it. They loaded the bases in the first inning in 4 straight games against the White Sox and scored 1 run. Something like that. So there are 4 straight games against, someplace. I don't know.
MGM Wine and Spirits is the choice for savings, service, and a great selection of spirits, premixed cocktails, wines, and of course, ice-cold beers and hard seltzers. With over 30 locations throughout the Twin Cities and beyond, there's an MGM near you. Head to MGMWineandSpirits.com to find a convenient location in your area. Get social. Follow MGM on Facebook and Instagram for all the latest news and trends. Make great moments with MGM Wine and Spirits, your locally owned and operated choice for over 50 years. Save time, save money. Shop MGM.
That's a good way to go. By the way, it's a 5-day break this year. They don't play on Friday for some reason. Longest them and the Angels both have a 5-day break. I don't know what. Phil explained it in his notes a couple of days ago, and I wasn't even quite sure how this came about, because the team that's off on Friday isn't the team that they're playing on Saturday. So
that's weird.
I don't
That's
know.
Very strange.
I don't know what the hell was going on, but they got 5 days off, and they probably need it. But of course, if they come back, it'll be because they still stink. It'll be because the break was too long and we got rusty. So we'll always make some excuse, but I don't know. It's not the way to go winging into the All-Star break, getting out hit 16-1 by the most talented team in the division. The Whiteys, everybody said, 95% of the American sports observers said the White Sox are going to win the division. And guess what? They're going to be right.
Yeah. I mean, they sure breathed some life into them. I mean, if this was it kind of reminds me of some of those in reverse a little bit, kind of reminds me of some of those Twins teams of the 2000s where you knew they were the best team. I'm thinking of 2003 in particular, where they just were, good for a while. I was surprised. I'd forgotten that team was in mid-June 38-27, and then went on a horrendous 6-22 bender into the break. But then you still had a feeling that they were the best team, and ended up winning the division by, I think, 4 games, but it was 6 with a couple to play, and they just didn't play anybody.
Didn't they get Shannon Stewart at the break then?
Yep, they did.
And that was, he gave him a big lift. But that team was way more talented than this team.
I'll never forget. I was at the first, I think I actually covered the first game out of the break that year for us. I'm not sure why I got that assignment, but it was after they acquired Shannon Stewart, and he actually went they won that game, but he went 0 for 4, and he made 2 outs in the first inning of that game, if I'm not mistaken. But the pregame scrum, in that game. He didn't even have his bats yet. His bats had not yet arrived. So he had to use a teammate's bat, and somebody asked him whose bats he was going to use, and he said he was going to use Louis Rivas's bats. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody quipped, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of hits left in those bats."
I don't know. It sounds like something I might have said, but I don't think it was me. So anyway, but I just, that's a bad way to go into the break. They've been in first place basically all year, but they're not a team worth getting excited about. Sorry. Now there is the blogger world of Twins people, which is, God love them. I think they do a good job and stuff, but there's some serious homers in that group, and they get very upset when we don't appreciate what a wonderful season we've had so far. By the way, 94 games. They do lead the American League in games played. They've played one more than everybody else, and several more than many teams. But, there's some people who are upset that we aren't excited enough. But I look at this team and sorry, I can't get excited. And I can get excited about baseball. I love baseball, but not this team. This team does not do it for me, especially when Buxton's hitting 210 instead of 260.
Games played might be their best stat. You don't want to, when everybody in the division's 500, you don't want to have games in hand. You want to have games played already. You want to have wins banked, not games in hand.
Baseball is not a sport where you want games in hand because it's not a point system like hockey.
No, you do not want games in hand in this division. You want who have won games already. Let's talk quick about their draft. Brooks Lee, shortstop, college shortstop. Sounds like, and this is what happens whenever somebody gets taken, but they always say they're surprised he was available, thrilled he was there. But this one actually looks legit because it sounds like this shortstop, Brooks Lee, was kind of a consensus, top 5 pick, and a couple pitchers get taken early in a draft where, I had Phil Miller, who covers the Twins, had him on late last week. I think it was Thursday's show, setting up the White Sox series. We talked a little draft, and at that point, he said there might not be a pitcher taken in the top 7. That they might have their pick of the first pitcher off the board, but when a couple pitchers got taken, here you go, Brooks Lee gets handed to them. So, baseball draft is a hard one to get too fired up about because we won't see these guys for forever. Although a college player, you probably have a little bit likelier chance to see him sooner than obviously a high school player, but it sounds like they did pretty well for themselves on Sunday.
Yeah, supposedly switch hitter and he was at what college? Kind of a second line college, right?
He was at I believe he was at Cal Poly, is that right?
Started somewhere else, I think, and then he transferred. And
he was at Cal Poly.
Switch hitter, and they thought he was I was actually watching a little of the baseball draft yesterday to see how stupid it was. And they really did a fine job because the draft picks are supposed to be 5 minutes apart. But TV had them. ESPN was on, and it was on MLB Network. They were going like 12, 13 minutes. When did that draft end you last night? About 3 a.m?
Yeah, I don't know.
I gave up after the Twins pick, but it was taken forever. At least they were more when Manfred came out, he didn't try to triumph it or anything. He just came out and said, "This is who the pick was," and we'll be back with whoever's picking next. But they certainly stretched it out. By the way, you know what helps, Mike?
What?
To have had a father who was a Major League Baseball player.
Yes.
First 2 picks, and then Carl Crawford's son goes in the top 10 too, right? So 3 sons of Major League Baseball players. And this was the first, only the second son of a Major League player to go first. The other one, Junior. Ken Griffey.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to see that more and more now, I think, because it's not just lineage, right? I mean, there's something to be said for, the genes that you get passed on. There's a genetic component to it too. But as players make more and more money, the sons and daughters of famous players will be growing up in environments where they have all sorts of resources available to them and can, use can fine tune their talents to become even better. So yeah, that does not surprise me at all.
Holiday and the bride must have got married pretty early, isn't it, with this kid, right? Didn't he just quit playing about 2 years ago?
Yeah, it never makes me feel young when I see names like that, and I'm like, wait a minute, it was somebody that I thought was maybe still playing. Like you lose track of some players, and you're like, how old is he? Like 32, and he's like, no, he's 40 something. You're like, wait, what? He's been out of the game for 5 years? Like, I don't know. If you don't pay.
All right, I thought he was playing with the Cardinals about 2 years ago. I couldn't remember, but anyway, that's some. I did see this kid, Tamara, whatever his name is. He was drafted high, I think third or fourth infielder, supposed to be really good. High school kid, man. He had the bat flip down already.
Nice.
But they showed, I think it was him. They showed a picture of this crowd taunting him. Overrated.
Oh, man.
School crowds, and he goes deep, way out over there. And apparently it was a draft prospect he was facing, and he took a leisurely trip around the bases after that. Don't chant overrated at a kid who's, it's amazing though, Mike, the way they're selecting these kids now, and what the information they have and the development they have with all these showcases and all this summer stuff. I remember when Tommy Nevers got drafted in the first round out of Edina, and I went out to see him play a game, and late April, and it was about 35 degrees.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
20 scouts there. And he took BP, took about 12 swings into BP. And then he batted 4 times. They walked him 3 times, and he fielded 2 balls and threw him to first base and say, okay, file your report, fellas. What'd you think?
Right.
It's a little different when you go to a showcase and they're playing against other great players, and they play 6 games in 3 days.
Yes.
You get a little more feedback on these players now. They should be more accurate now than they were, 25 years ago. They have a lot more information.
Let's switch gears here a little bit to the British Open. Patrick, Cameron Smith,
that boy
64 on Sunday, 20 under for the tournament in the British Open. Was this the British Open or the John Deere Classic? Well, 20 under? What is going on here?
Well, if the wind doesn't blow, St. Andrews is pretty much defenseless. And the wind, they did not get any lousy weather. It's all, they don't do anything to the golf course. They just put it there. And if Mother Nature chooses to do something and let the wind blow 40 miles an hour, then they're going to have high scores. And those greens were rocks, man. But that kid can roll it. Holy cow. I mean, we did that same thing in the Players. He did it for a while at the Masters. He is a putting fool. And Rory, Rory can't putt. God love him. He can't putt. He may never win a Masters because it's a putting contest, and he can't putt. When I say can't putt, I mean, he, once in a while he'll have a hot round with the putter, but he's not a putter. When he's taking a 6-footer, there's a chance. He 2-putted 18 times yesterday. 2-putted, didn't have a 1-putt green.
Wow.
You can't win the British Open without a 1-putt green for man. And Smith is just rolling them in from every place, man alive. And I became more aware of him this spring, and just when he's got the blade in his hand, you're not surprised if it goes in from anywhere. He looks like Woods when he was in his youth, but for us old timers, the old Tom Watson, who was the greatest putter of all time until he missed his first 4-footer, and then he hit the ball to the green to the hole as much as he used to. But so we got a big thrill. I was talking to Brian Stensas yesterday, and he told me about 11 in the morning. I was talking about something else, and he said that the PGA media website had Cameron Smith committed to the 3M Open this week.
Okay.
And then I texted him later in the day and I said, he's not coming now. And he says, he never was coming. They screwed it up. It was Cameron Davis.
Oh, really?
That's like, I said, that's like with saying the Timberwolves acquired LeBron James and then saying, oh, wait, it was Mike.
It was LeBron Smith. Whoops. Yeah, different LeBron
Smith. It was LeBron Smith. But yeah, that was, it was fun to watch that kid putt. But the golf course was really easy. Hell, it's like some prairie golf course in Minnesota. They just, it's just this place with these goofy holes that are in there that, if you get a bad break and your drive runs too far and runs into one of these bunkers, you're going to make 6. Beyond that, there's no great challenge to the golf course if the wind's not blowing. I was over there once for 2002 at Muirfield, and Thursday, Friday, they were kind of ripping it up, even though it's a tougher course than St. Andrews. But Tiger and the whole afternoon group got caught in this storm. Tiger shot 81, and he was lucky to do that. The wind was blowing 45 in a driving rain, and they kept playing. They don't care as long as there's not lightning.
Right.
And it's all those golf courses over there. It's all based on whether the wind blows hard or not. The wind didn't blow hard. This kid made all his putts, and it was a dang worthy winner. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Let's move on to a couple other things at the end here. Patrick, I was watching the Loons match. This must have been Saturday night. They were playing against DC United, and Loons won. It was a good. DC United's been terrible this year, and I hadn't been following this closely enough, but I knew that DC United had hired Wayne Rooney, the longtime superstar, to be their new manager. But they flashed this graphic up on the screen that said something like Wayne Rooney hired as DC United manager on like July 12th or something like that. So like 4 days previous to that. And he's sitting up in the box or something watching the game. They still have their interim manager managing this game. And I'm thinking, what other league and what world do you take over a team but not manage a game? That caught me off guard.
Yeah, well, he's trying to look at his. They are they're unbelievable the way they do stuff, and I'm sure he's observing.
Yes.
The big question is he still married to Colleen? Because that tabloids loved Colleen, man. When I was in the London tabloids, Rooney's wife Colleen, and they would have some difficulties, but when the Wags went to like the south of France every year during the off season, the tabloids were dedicated to bikini pictures of Colleen and the other girls. And I was doing a morning show then at KSTP, and we'd always look at the London Mail and the stuff in the morning to see who was what the tabloids. I mean, the front page of the tabloids would be pictures of soccer girlfriends and wives. Right. On the beach in the south of France, and Colleen Rooney was one of the big, one of their finer attractions of that. So that's whenever I think of Wayne, I think of the tabloids in London. And
well,
how would our athletes handle that if that's the way the newspapers covered them here in the United States? They get mad if if you, I don't know, if you mention anything about their personal life over there, their dating history is a, by the way, the cat's in Europe. He's on an extended European trip with his girlfriend, whatever her name is, the former friend of the Kardashians. So whatever her name is, but the cats, that's where cats become one of those Europe travelers, kind of like, Ricky Nolasco and Giancarlo Ricky. That's what I love best about Ricky. Couldn't pitch, but he traveled with Giancarlo to spend the winter in various outposts in Europe. Oh, man, I love
Ricky might not have been able to pitch, but at least he was honest. I still remember being at his introductory news conference. He was asked why he started with the Twins, and he said it was the money, baby. That was it. That was it. They offered him the biggest contract.
I think he got $48 million, didn't he, for 4
like 40,
years?
48, 49, something like that. It was, he was coming up. He was coming off a good year, but that was a lot to pay for Ricky Nolasco.
I don't think he burned with desire to play the game. I never felt that way. But yeah, it is odd though that. So we're hot now, right? The Lynx, though, right? I mean, not the Lynx.
The Loons. Yeah, they won. They won that one. I think Reynoso had a couple of goals in that game.
More than one goal in 4 straight games. That's
yeah,
good.
they had the 1-1 draw in there, but they had the 3 games in a row where they had 3 goals, and then I think they had 2 the other night in that win over DC United. So yeah, they're playing much better now. I think that's a 5 or 6 game unbeaten streak now, and in the table, we don't call them the standings, Patrick. We call it the table. In the table now, they are up to 4th place in the West. 9 wins, 8 losses, 4 draws. So still not. How
many fixtures do we have left then?
Fixtures. That's a good question. Well, they've played 21 fixtures so far. So I suppose that means they have about 13 left. I think it's a 34 game MLS season. So, a lot of soccer left to play, as there always is. It's like an 11 and a half month season, but it's
they take a month off in the middle of the soccer, what should be the soccer season, because you got to have the international, whatever the hell it is.
Yes.
Period.
And they have to finish early this year because of the World Cup in Qatar in November.
I was going to, a couple of years ago, I was going to go over and write a column using none of the soccer terms, game, and, to see if I could agitate people by using none of the soccer terms, but it wasn't worth my effort. So, back in the day, I might have done that, but not now. I'm a more serious journalist. So
not as you've matured.
Yes, I've matured.
Oh.
Yes.
But Loons did win. Aurora win 1-0. Morgan Turner, who I had on the podcast on Friday, had the only goal in their playoff win Sunday.
Is she a collegiate or is she post-collegiate?
I believe she's post-collegiate. She played at DePaul. She's good though. I think she's had goals in 5 straight games. She's had goals in both of their playoff games. So rising to the occasion. But I just felt good that
what success they've had as a collegiate team and pre-professional, as the great PR person Andrea Yack describes it, was who that was quite a term to come up with, pre-professional. But why don't they move up to why don't they get a franchise in the league?
I bet they will. I bet they will eventually.
How about next year? We're the world champ. We're going to be the world champs of this league.
Of the USLW.
I think they were playing yesterday as an academy, right?
Yeah, they're pretty good too.
Soccer academy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their future is, but this is the most, one of the more surprising things you can imagine. That, like you said, this is not this is a league that, who knew what would happen this year, and they're drawing like 5,000 fans a game, 6,000 for the playoffs out at the Vikings, practice field out at TCO Performance Center. It's just, it feels like the support they've had will warrant a elevation in status to the professional league, not the pre-professional league, sooner rather than later.
Well, good luck to them. I'm more interested in the Moondoggies down there in the Northwest League. That's another collegiate league, but good. I really, my Aurora knowledge is rather limited, to say the least.
Limited your knowledge.
But they're drawing people, so
they are.
Now, do they all get drunk and go crazy like they used to when the Kicks games? Is it kind of like the Kicks games where there's debauchery and stuff going on out in the parking lot? Probably not.
Don't think it's quite like that, although it's who knows what it will become. Hey, let's go ahead.
Kegs and crazy behavior, no.
Before we go, Patrick, I know you're one thing you have a lot of knowledge of is baseball. Tony Oliva, you are headed out to induction weekend next weekend. I got to imagine you're looking forward to that. Programming note, by the way, you and I will be talking Tuesday next week, not Monday, because of both of our schedules next week. But got to imagine that's going to be a pretty special weekend for you.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Tony is going in. Of course, Scott, I've
yes.
been a friend with him for a long time. Got him on the radio show for about 5 years. The greatest guest ever. He could not be stumped. He had a story for everything. By the way, somebody sent me this. It was in yesterday's paper. July is this day in baseball, today in baseball.
Okay.
July 17th, 1969. Jim Cott was charged with 3 errors.
Wow. Wasn't he he was a great fielder, right?
15 straight gold gloves. But
yeah.
On the day we had all our stuff in the paper about him, that today in baseball, he was charged with 3 errors. But yeah, 2 great twins, Cott and Tony, the greatest of all, my all-time favorite player to watch when I was a fan or to cover for those 2 years and just many years as a coach. I love the guy, and yeah, it'll be great. I'm anxious to see. The prices out there are outrageous. I'm sure there can be a lot of Minnesotans who had to figure out a good way to get there and come sweeping into town on Saturday or Sunday morning for the ceremony, because it's I am going, of course, with a mutual friend of ours, Sharkman.
Yes.
And we're going in, and we're in Utica for a couple of nights, just because nobody can. The place I stayed in Cooperstown, Mike, when I went in February with Tony.
Yes.
The Railroad Inn. You could have filmed The Shining in the Railroad Inn in February. They wanted $800 a night with a 3-night minimum.
Woo. 51 weeks a year. They got to make up for those.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm sure in the summer they charge a couple of.
I suppose.
But, honest to God, they had a young woman behind the desk and me. That was who was in the bill. They'd have breakfast there in the morning for all their guests. It'd be a banana, it was because there was nobody there. There was nobody there, and they're charging $800 a night Hall of Fame weekend. So
that's amazing.
Wow. It is rather incredible. But yeah, it'll be fun. And I love Tony, and I love Cott too. So it'll be great.
Well, I look forward to hearing all those stories next week. Enjoy the trip, and we'll talk again in a week. All right.
All right, Michael. See you.